There are prisons, and then there is CECOT, a place so feared that even the most violent gang members in Latin America whisper its name carefully. No windows, no freedom, no escape. Inside this concrete fortress in El Salvador, thousands of the world's most dangerous criminals live under constant surveillance, watched every second, controlled every minute. But what really happens inside CECOT? Tonight, we take you deep inside the prison many call the harshest on earth. And what we discovered is more disturbing than anyone imagined. For years, El Salvador was known as one of the deadliest countries in the world. Entire neighborhoods were controlled by violent gangs. Extortion, disappearances, executions. People lived in fear every single day. Bus drivers paid gang taxes just to survive. Store owners handed over money weekly. Children learned which streets could get them killed. At night, entire cities went silent because everyone knew one thing: the gangs ruled the streets. And the most feared among them were organizations like Miss 13 and Barrio 18. Their members were ruthless. Their power stretched across borders, and their violence became a nightmare the country could no longer ignore. Then everything changed. The government launched a massive crackdown unlike anything the country had ever seen. Thousands were arrested. Military forces flooded the streets. And deep in the countryside, construction began on a prison designed for one purpose only: total control. That prison would become known as CECOT, the Terrorism Confinement Center, a place built not for rehabilitation, but for domination. The first thing visitors notice about CECOT is the silence. Not peaceful silence, oppressive silence. The prison looks less like a correctional facility and more like a military bunker built for war. Massive concrete walls rise into the sky. Layers of razor wires surround every perimeter. Armed guards patrol every movement. Inside, there are no colorful prison uniforms, no televisions, no privacy, only steel, concrete, and control. Thousands of inmates are packed into giant cells under blinding lights that never truly let them rest. Most spend nearly every hour locked inside overcrowded blocks. The routine is relentless. Wake up, stand in formation, eat, return to confinement. Again, and again, and again. Some inmates are heavily tattooed gang members once feared across entire cities. But inside CECOT, their power disappears. Here, the prison controls everything. And according to officials, that is exactly the point. When footage from inside CECOT first appeared online, millions were stunned. Rows of shaved-headed inmates sat shoulder to shoulder. Armed guards in black tactical gear surrounded them. The atmosphere looked closer to a war zone than a prison. The images spread across social media instantly. Some viewers praised the prison. They believed the crackdown finally restored safety to the country. Others were horrified. Human rights groups questioned the conditions. Critics warned that innocent people could also be caught in mass arrests. But the government defended the operation aggressively. Officials claimed the prison was necessary to destroy gang control permanently. And for many citizens, the drop in violence felt impossible to ignore. The debate exploded globally. Was CECOT restoring order or creating something even more dangerous? Inside the prison, discipline is absolute. Inmates sleep on metal bunks with almost no personal belongings. Movement is tightly controlled. Communication is limited. Surveillance is constant. Guards carry military-grade weapons. Security cameras monitor nearly every corner. The prison was designed to prevent organization between gang members. Because outside these walls, gang communication once fueled murders, extortion, and fear across the country. Now, those same men live in a place where even small freedoms barely exist. Former gang members who once controlled entire neighborhoods now stand silently in lines under armed watch. For some viewers, the scenes represent justice. For others, they represent something terrifying. And that tension is exactly why the world cannot stop watching CECOT. But perhaps the most unsettling part of CECOT is not the prison itself. It is what it represents: fear, power, control. Supporters believe harsh measures were the only way to stop decades of violence. Critics fear the cost of that security may be far greater than people realize. And somewhere behind those concrete walls, thousands of inmates continue living in one of the most heavily controlled prison systems on earth. No escape, no distractions, no freedom, only routine, only surveillance, only CECOT. The world continues to debate whether CECOT is a symbol of safety or a warning about how far governments can go in the name of security. But one thing is undeniable: few prisons on earth inspire this much fear, and few places remain as mysterious behind closed doors. Because inside CECOT, the rules of normal prison life no longer exist. And once those steel doors close behind you, the outside world disappears forever. For the outside world, CECOT is a symbol, a fortress, a warning, a prison designed to crush fear with even greater fear. But behind the concrete walls, behind the armed guards and steel gates, are thousands of human beings, some guilty of horrifying crimes, some claiming they were arrested by mistake. And inside CECOT, those stories collide in disturbing ways. Tonight, we go deeper into the prison the world cannot stop talking about. And the reality inside is even darker than before. It usually happens before sunrise. Entire neighborhoods wake up to the sound of military trucks rolling through narrow streets. Doors burst open, floodlights cut through darkness. Families are forced outside while armed officers search homes room by room. In recent years, thousands of people across El Salvador were detained during any gang operations. For many citizens, the raids brought relief. For others, they brought fear. Some families claimed their sons disappeared overnight. Mothers waited outside police stations searching for answers. Wives held photographs of missing husbands. And across social media, videos began appearing of mass arrests unlike anything most people had ever seen. Lines of handcuffed men, shaved heads, tattoo inspections, military convoys. The government called it a war against gangs. Supporters called it justice. Critics called it dangerous. But inside CECOT, the debate no longer matters. Because once inmates enter the prison, their old lives disappear. The transfer process is designed to break control immediately. Inmates arrive under heavy armed escort. Many are forced to move quickly with heads lowered while guards shout commands around them. The atmosphere is intense, loud, chaotic, humiliating. Every movement is monitored. Inside processing areas, officials document tattoos, scars, and gang markings. Many inmates lose nearly all personal identity the moment they enter. No jewelry, no personal items, no connection to the outside world. Only numbers, orders, and surveillance. Then come the cells. Massive crowded units built to hold dozens upon dozens of inmates at once. Metal bunks stacked tightly together. Bright lights overhead. Little privacy. Little silence. And according to reports from inside, the psychological pressure begins almost immediately. Because CECOT was never designed to feel human. It was designed to feel permanent. One former security analyst described prisons like CECOT with a chilling phrase: control through exhaustion. Inside the prison, routine becomes everything. Wake up, line up, eat, sit, wait, sleep, again, and again, and again. Days begin to blur together. Without freedom, time itself starts changing. Experts say this type of environment can deeply affect the human mind, especially in overcrowded facilities, with constant surveillance and limited personal space. Some inmates reportedly spend nearly all day inside confinement, blocks with very little stimulation, no privacy, no independence, no escape from noise, tension, or authority. And in places like CECOT, that pressure never fully stops. When international journalists and content creators were allowed limited access to the prison, the footage exploded online instantly. Millions watched inmates standing shirtless in rows while heavily armed guards surrounded them. The visuals looked cinematic, almost unreal. To supporters, the images represented power, proof that gangs no longer controlled the streets. But critics saw something else: fear, public humiliation, and the possibility that the prison system was becoming part of a larger political image campaign. Yet the videos continued spreading across YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, and documentaries worldwide. Because whether people supported CECOT or feared it, they could not stop watching it. Outside the prison walls, another story continues quietly. Families waiting for news. Some know their relatives committed violent crimes. Others insist their loved ones were innocent. But communication with inmates is extremely limited. And for many families, the uncertainty becomes its own punishment. Mothers wait months hoping for information. Children grow up without fathers. Entire communities remain divided between relief and grief. Because while some neighborhoods now feel safer than before, many people still wonder how many lives were permanently changed inside the crackdown. And those questions continue growing louder around the world. CECOT was built to send a message to gangs, to criminals, to the public. But the deeper the world looks inside the prison, the more complicated that message becomes. Because behind every prison number is still a human story, some violent, some tragic, some still unknown. And somewhere tonight, behind layers of concrete and steel, thousands of inmates remain awake under the bright lights of one of the world's most feared prisons, waiting, watching, and wondering if they will ever leave CECOT alive. Subscribe for more deep true crime documentaries and real stories from around the world. By now, the world has seen the images, the shaved heads, the armed guards, the endless rows of inmates locked behind steel and concrete. To some people, CECOT represents safety. To others, it represents something much darker. But beyond the headlines and viral videos, there is one question that continues haunting El Salvador and the rest of the world. What happens to a society when fear becomes the foundation of justice? Tonight, we uncover the final chapter of the prison no one can stop talking about. And the truth behind CECOT may be more unsettling than anyone expected. Not long ago, many neighborhoods across El Salvador were trapped in fear. Businesses paid extortion money. Families avoided certain streets. Children grew up surrounded by violence. But after the massive anti-gang crackdown, something changed. For the first time in years, many citizens reported feeling safe walking outside at night. Tourism began increasing. Businesses reopened. Public spaces once controlled by gangs slowly came back to life. To supporters of the government, CECOT became proof that extreme action worked. They believed the prison restored order where chaos once ruled. And for many ordinary citizens, the results felt impossible to ignore. But not everyone celebrated, because while violence appeared to decrease, questions about the human cost continued growing louder. Human rights organizations around the world began raising alarms. Reports questioned mass arrests, overcrowding, due process, prison conditions, indefinite detentions. Critics warn that in a system moving this fast, mistakes become dangerous. Some families claimed innocent relatives had vanished into the prison system with little explanation. Others feared the country was sacrificing civil liberties for security, and outside observers started asking difficult questions. If fear can reduce crime, how far should governments be allowed to go? At what point does protection become control? And once a society accepts extreme measures, can it ever return to normal again? Those questions sparked heated debates online and across international media. But inside CECOT, the debate never reaches the inmates, because behind those walls, the routine continues every single day. For prison guards, CECOT is not just a workplace, it is a pressure cooker. Every movement is monitored carefully. Every inmate interaction carries risk. The prison houses thousands of alleged gang members once connected to some of the most violent criminal networks in the region. Security personnel operate under constant tension. Armed patrols move through corridors. Emergency response teams remain prepared at all times. Surveillance systems track activity continuously. Former prison experts say facilities like CECOT depend on one thing above all else: absolute control. Because the moment control slips, everything changes. And that fear shapes everyone inside the prison, including the guards themselves. CECOT became more than a prison. It became an internet phenomenon. Millions watched documentaries, reaction videos, interviews, drone footage, and investigative reports. Some creators called it the world's harshest prison, the prison criminals fear most, hell on earth. The images spread everywhere because they triggered powerful emotions instantly: fear, shock, curiosity, controversy. People argued endlessly in comment sections. Some said, "This is exactly how dangerous criminals should be treated." Others responded, "No government should have this much power." And that division only pushed the videos further into the algorithm. Because controversy keeps audiences watching. And few places in the world generate controversy like CECOT. CECOT was built to eliminate fear from the streets of El Salvador. But in doing so, it created one of the most feared prisons on earth. To some people, it is a symbol of strength. To others, a warning about the future. And maybe that is why the world remains obsessed with it. Because CECOT forces society to confront an uncomfortable question. How much freedom are people willing to sacrifice to finally feel safe? Tonight, thousands of inmates will once again sleep beneath bright lights and armed surveillance inside the massive concrete fortress known as CECOT. And outside those walls, the world will continue debating whether it represents justice or something far more dangerous. Subscribe for more true crime documentaries and dark real-world stories.